If you're looking to know everything you need to know about the conference championships before heading into the NCAA tournament, then you need to watch this video. Let's stop stalling and start talking wrestling. What's going on, wrestling fans? My name's Josiah, and welcome to the Fanco Wrestling YouTube channel for this week's segment of Wrestling Headlines. And in this video, I'm going to recap every single conference champion, every team champ, every individual champ. I'm going to let you know exactly what you need to know heading into the NCAA tournament. Timestamps will be in the description below, or you can use this nice channel markers that I segmented throughout the video. So first, let's talk about, oh my goodness, conference championships were incredible. From the ACCs to the Big Tens to the SoCon, so many great matches and plenty of upsets that will definitely make seeding at the NCAA tournament quite interesting. Seedings will be coming out very, very soon. But first, the Big Ten. So let's talk about the Big Ten. Iowa Hawkeyes won for the second year in a row the Big Ten championship, and they won it by a convincing margin. They won 159.5 points. That's what they won with. And Penn State was the second closest team, getting 124 points. The team after that was Nebraska, scoring 105 points. And Iowa had 4 champions. They put a few guys in the finals, the most guys in the finals out of any team, and won 4 Big Ten titles, which was honestly just super impressive. All their guys wrestled very well. I was impressed by them. There was one guy I wasn't largely impressed by, and I'll get to that in a second, but the guy who I was easily the most impressed by was Spencer Lee. He just bonused his way throughout the whole tournament, stays undefeated, wins his second Big Ten title, and stays all bonus throughout the entire season. We'll see if he can bonus his way to an NCAA title. I think he's going to be able to do it, but he just looked really good. Big Ten Wrestler of the Year, and deservedly so. RBY and DeSanto lived up to the excitement. That match, RBY won by a score of 5-2, and honestly, he just kind of was the aggressor the whole time. DeSanto gave what he could to the match, and he was attacking. It's not like it was a bad match or anything, but RBY was just he was a true aggressor there, and we'll see if DeSanto is going to be able to make any kind of improvements or adjustments coming into NCAAs. Ironman and Nick Lee. Now, Jaden Ironman won this match by a score of 6-5. Now, this was the Hawkeye I wasn't necessarily that impressed by, and mostly just because, listen, he rode Nick Lee out. That was impressive. He was able to, just assert his dominance on Nick Lee. But the thing I wasn't very impressed by was just he was kind of stalling. He got up in the match. He got the takedown. He got his riding time. And then he just kind of stalled out the rest of the match, in my opinion. And honestly, he did get 2 stalling calls on him, which kind of bothered me. It was upsetting because Nick Lee kept attacking there. But, we'll see. That's kind of Ironman's style. He had an awesome takedown on Nick Lee. That was a super cool takedown that he hit on Nick Lee. But I did have to say that. Deacon beat Young. I'll get to Deacon in just a second. Marinelli wrestled Ethan Smith to a great match, won by a score of 3-2. And the other Hawkeye who I was very impressed by was Michael Kemmer, who won in a tough bracket. He beat Srirachi by a score of 7-2. Srirachi was impressive, was able to make the finals of the Big Ten Championships in his freshman season. He actually won the Freshman of the Year. But Kemmer he just proved to be too much for Carter Srirachi, for the young guy. And was it that much of a surprise? No, not really. But some of the things that were a surprise was that Max Murin, it's still speaking of the Hawkeyes for a little bit, then I'll get to Penn State and a couple of the other things. Max Murin went 0-2, lost to Ridge Lovett and Van Brill. Nelson Brands took 4th, Jacob Warner 3rd, and Anthony Cassiope 3rd, who actually majored Greg Kirkfleet by a score of 9-0 in the 3rd and 4th place match. So let's get to Penn State a little bit. I know you're interested in hearing all about the Nittany Lions. So, I mentioned RBY, and Aaron Brooks actually won his second Big Ten title. He's on a path to win 5 straight Big Ten titles if he can continue to win out through the rest of his time at Penn State. Carter Srirachi, again, like I said, won Freshman of the Year. And then some of the other Nittany Lions. Robbie Howard, Beard, and Berge all placed 6th. So they wrestled okay, and a lot of them kind of battled back. I'll say, some of the guys I was impressed by in the Nittany Lions. Michael Beard, he lost a close match to Miles Amin in sudden victory. And Amin ended up going on and winning the Big Ten Championship he was just such a powerful wrestler in the finals against Eric Schultz. But before that, he actually had 2 sudden victory matches he against Beard and Warner. So that 197-pound weight class is something that is likely to shift the NCAAs. I mean, Amin was the true champion, but you look at those sudden victory matches, anything can happen. Ridge Lovett just had so much fun this weekend, and he just crushed his way through the bracket with Murin, Blockus, and Sasso. He didn't beat Sasso, but he proved he pushed him. He pushed Sasso definitely in the finals, but Sasso was just a little bit too much for Ridge Lovett. And Deacon, the thing about Deacon is that he doesn't do anything crazy, right? He goes out on the mat, he wins pretty well in the finals and against all these guys, but he doesn't run his mouth. He doesn't do anything crazy. He's just a straight-laced wrestler, and I like those type of guys. But unfortunately, he doesn't get all the press, I think, because of the fact that he's so straight-laced. And on the other hand of that, you look at guys like Gable Stevenson, who went out there. He had a great tournament. He destroyed his way through the bracket, majored Mason Parrish in the finals 12-4. But in my opinion, Gable Stevenson is just a guy who's just way too cocky. And I went through and read different comments on different threads just to see what the general consensus was. Some people like his antics. I don't like his antics. The interviewer asked him if it's his rival after, and I get it. Like, he's not his rival because he has beat him 2 times. But to be running his mouth on the mat is just not a good look. Not a good look for wrestling, in my opinion. But I know that there's a lot of disagreements about that. The same tournament that happened this weekend was actually the Big 12 tournament. And Big 12s they came down to the wire. They literally came down to the wire, with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State actually ended up tying 124-124. They both won a share of the Big 10 team trophy. And I was like, how is there not tiebreaker criteria? Some tiebreaker criteria, whether Oklahoma or Oklahoma State should have won it. It was just, come on. But 124, it came down to the 197-pound match, and I'll get to that in a second. But Oklahoma was actually leading after day 1, and they just had a thrill of a tournament for Oklahoma. I mean, they were looking good, especially going into the finals when Dom Demas was able to pull his finally win over Ian Parker. He's actually up in the series 4-3 now. Interestingly enough, he won the match 4-3 in sudden victory. And he actually had lost the last 2 meetings to Ian Parker, including last year at Big 12. So it's kind of a great victory for Dom Demas. He's coming back. He's looking strong. And Oklahoma, I mean, that was great for them to get that win early on in the finals. But at 197 is where it came down to. And let me set the groundwork here. Pretty much, AJ Ferrari at this point, he had to beat Stephen Buchanan of Wyoming. Who actually, Buchanan beat Noah Adams in the semis by a score of 3-2. That's his 3rd win over the wrestler who was undefeated coming into this season. AJ Ferrari at this point upset Tanner Sloan, who was also another undefeated wrestler in the number 1 seed. He beat Jake Woodley before that. So both of these guys are coming into this match. It's going to be a great match. If Ferrari wins, he ties with Oklahoma for the team tournament. If he wins by major decision, then he wins the team tournament outright for Oklahoma State. Now, it came down to it. Now, Ferrari did win, and he just kept coming at Buchanan, but Buchanan wasn't just going to lay down there without a fight. And I'm surprised that Ferrari was able to take it to Buchanan as much as he did, honestly. Like, he just came out and was attacking like crazy. I mean, I just loved watching this wrestler get at it. But he ended up the crazy thing. I mean, he just kept attacking, takedown after takedown. But unfortunately, he got a little bit too, I guess, I don't want to say out of focus, but a little sloppy just because he kept attacking and he wanted to try to throw Buchanan to his back, and Buchanan was just able to kind of capitalize on that and get a couple of takedowns. The final score of that match was 13-8, so Ferrari didn't win the team. I mean, he did and he didn't. He tied the team title. He didn't win outright, but he did win a Big 12 championship. And Ferrari, you better be watching out for him at 197. Him and Miles Amin and Eric Schultz and everybody else in the field at 197. It's an open weight, and I can't wait to see what happens there. Oklahoma State. Now, the thing, too, is I want to mention here is Oklahoma State had a team point deducted in the consolation. So that was, I mean, just so crucial, a team point deduction that they lost in the consolations that technically ended up costing them the outright team title. Now, this technically was their 9th straight, even though they did tie with Oklahoma. But the other guys for Oklahoma State, Dayton Fix won his title. Beulah Wallen won at 149 in a pretty stacked up bracket. Now, I was looking forward to the Andrew Alvarez match potentially in the finals. Now, Alvarez, unfortunately, injury defaulted out of the tournament. But he did defeat Mitch Moore of Oklahoma in the finals. In other news, Wyoming, put 4 guys in the finals. I mean, Wyoming's just looking like a impressive program. Cole Moody, Tate Samuelson, Stephen Buchanan, and Brian Andrews all made the finals. Unfortunately, they all lost in the finals, but still, they all got into those championship match. In other news, Parker Keckeisen remains undefeated. The redshirt freshman, 13-0 in his first Big 12 title. Another young gun, Brody Teske, won his title over Taylor Lamont of Utah Valley. And David Carr wins another Big 12 championship, which is definitely going to set up an interesting triangle as we head into the NCAA tournament between him, Deacon, and Hindley. Now, each of them have kind of set their own precedent and saying, look out. Hindley saying, look out, Deacon, look out, Carr. Carr saying, look out, guys. So we'll see what happens there. They're all undefeated this year. They're all all conference champions. And I'm pumped to see how they compete coming into NCAAs. As far as other wrestling news, you still haven't heard about the SoCon, the Pac-12s, the MAC. So anything you missed, I'm going to recap that here. Let's talk about the Pac-12 first. So in the Pac-12, Arizona State won their 4th straight. They won their 4th straight for in the Pac-12. They won by a score 138, Arizona State. They beat Oregon State, who scored 123, and Stanford of 115. Now, Stanford, I thought they would score more points than they did, and there was just so much happening in the Pac-12. First of all, Arizona State dominated with 5 champs, which is some of the most conference champions out of all the conferences. And I believe they had the most last year, actually. So, Courtney, Teamer, Valencia, Norfleet, and Schultz all won Pac-12 titles. Schultz won his first title, and Norfleet and Courtney both remain undefeated this season. This was Anthony Valencia's 4th title. His 4th Pac-12 title, meaning that if he comes back for another year, he could actually win his 5th title. He earned the Outstanding Wrestler after defeating, guess what? Shane Griffith of Stanford, which was an impressive victory. He didn't just beat him, he beat him 11-0. So he majored him and shut him out. And that kind of says, like, Stanford had a bit of a rough weekend. Like, they finished in 3rd, but Griffith took the L to Valencia. Real Woods returned. He actually returned, and I was excited to see how he was going to do, but unfortunately, he was pinned by Grant Willits in the finals of Oregon State. Also, at that same weight, Julian Cleveland got the start over LaPerry for Arizona State, which was kind of interesting to see how that worked out. I know that apparently they had wrestled off. This was some of the drama going on in the Pac-12. They had wrestled off, and I guess coach decided that Cleveland was the guy. Unfortunately, he just finished in, I believe it was 6th place. And LaPerry's a guy who goes from Rutgers to Rider to Arizona State and just can't get the start. It's unfortunate to see that. We'll see what happens in the future. Jaden Bass, though I do want to mention for Stanford, did win the title heading into the NCAA tournament. He's a young guy who I would be watching out for. And Cal Poly even got a champion at 174 pounds. So that was pretty great to see that happen. Pac-12 was very interesting this year. Arizona State just absolutely dominated. Oregon State was up at one point in the tournament, but Arizona State just proved to be too much. I mean, when you have 5 champions, it's kind of hard to lose the tournament. Now, in another conference that did happen, where there were 5 champions that did lose the tournament or did lose the conference championship, but we'll get to that. So, talk about the EIWA. Lehigh also won their 4th straight title, just like Arizona State. They won 158 points to Navy's 129. So this was the interesting story here: could Navy actually beat Lehigh coming into this year? They won in the dual meet, but were they going to be enough to actually win the tournament? Unfortunately, it wasn't. Lehigh did win the conference championships for the 4th straight year, and EIWA, so Lehigh ran away with the championship. It would have been tighter, I believe, if there were other schools there, with Cornell, with Harvard, with a lot of these other Ivy League schools that weren't able to compete in the postseason. And the thing is, the crazy thing is that the EIWA still received the same amount of bids as they have in the past. Going into conference and then into NCAAs, they pretty much received the same amount of bids as they had in the past based on historical criteria, but they had like 5 teams out of the conference. Kind of crazy. So you have some guys who may not even have won a match at conference that are going to NCAAs. I don't know. It seems a little bit ridiculous to me, but I know if you're in EIWA, you're pumped about it. And maybe you had a bad conference weekend, but you can do something at nationals. But Lehigh won 4 weights with Jarrett Lane, Hines, Jacobson, and Wood, with Wood winning at heavyweight his 4th EIWA title and the first heavyweight to win 4 titles. He would become the first ever EIWA 5-time champion if he comes back next year and wins that trophy. Pat Santora said it was the whole team and it was consistent. Having 10 guys wrestle at the same level, it's really hard to do in a tournament, and that's truly true. Everybody's happy with the way they wrestled. That's what head coach Pat Santora said, and it makes sense. When you have all those guys wrestling at that tournament caliber, it's impressive. Navy and Army were battling it out. They were battling out for second, and it came down to Navy ended up scoring 10 more tournament points than Army, 129 to 119.5 Army. Navy had 1 champ, Army had 2. EIWA is just getting more and more competitive. And you want to talk about conferences that are getting competitive? The ACC, honestly, may have been one of the most competitive conferences in this season. Not only dual meets, but also in the conference championships. The ACC, NC State won their title, their 3rd straight by score. They won 89.5 points. NC State had to Virginia Tech 65.5. So they won by a convincing margin. And actually, UNC was pretty close to Virginia Tech. They had 63 points, just 2.5 points off from getting that silver trophy, silver medal, whatever you want to talk about it. NC State just proved, the NC State and Virginia Tech rivalry has just been heating up like crazy. I can't even believe how much these teams go at it. It's absolutely unreal. They proved to be the alpha wolves. You kind of see that going around on social media, the alpha wolves of the ACC. NC State had 5 champs. In the ACC, so each of these conferences kind of do things a little bit differently. ACCs started at 133 because they wanted to end on 125. The Latona and Camacho match. Now, it didn't necessarily matter for the team score at that point, but the Latona and Camacho match at 125 was a match that everybody wanted to watch. I was so pumped for this because in the dual meet, it came down to the last 2 seconds with Latona claiming the victory. But what happened in the actual conference championship finals, the score was 7-4 in the duel, but in the finals it came down to tiebreakers, 2-1. Latona was able to win that match yet again. Virginia Tech actually earned the bookend wins out 33 and 25, but NC State proved dominant other than that. Tariq Wilson won his first title his first title actually. It was over Zach Sherman, won by a score of 10-1, and Tariq Wilson is looking the best he has looked in years, honestly. Tariq's always somebody that I like to watch, but this is the best that he has looked in quite some time. The Hiley brothers both won. Hayden won his 4th title, and Trent Hiley pulled off the overtime takedown on Hunter Bullen. Before this, he just could not get over the hump and beat Hunter Bullen, but he was finally able to get the takedown, had an awesome celebration. Honestly, it's the best celebration of the entire conference championships. And to me, like, a celebration after a conference championship win is totally cool. Like, there's a difference between a celebration and just shoving it in somebody's face, being a total show-off. That's not what Trent Hiley was doing. He was pumped to win a conference championship over Hunter Bullen, and I was pumped to see it. Now, another interesting thing that happened here is that NC State decided to wrestle Renan instead of Trumbull, who ended up taking 4th, but Trumbull is somebody who had beat Nino Bonacorsi earlier this season, and Bonacorsi actually went up to win the conference championship. So kind of strange that this is where they decided to go with it, but it was just weird to me. But Pitt crowned their 2 champs actually. Nino Bonacorsi, who beat Jay Aiello in the finals 2-0, and Jake Wenzel, who beat Jake Keating in the finals 4-0. He's back-to-back ACC champion is Jake Wenzel. Now, you may be wondering, what about Mekhi Lewis? What happened to Mekhi Lewis? He took the mat, but he injury defaulted out. So he's going to likely get that bid he's going to get the bid to NCAA championships, but is he going to be good enough to wrestle? That's the unfortunate part. Is I don't know. With a shoulder injury, he hurt his shoulder in the Wenzel match earlier this season when Wenzel was beating him pretty good. I mean, it may have been like 3-0 or 4-0 or something like that, but he was beating him pretty darn good. And it's sad to see that Mikhail wasn't good enough to wrestle here, but I hope that we get that match again at the NCAA championships, because 165 is a crazy weight. The other tournament, the other team in North Carolina, there were actually 2 North Carolina teams that claimed their 3rd straight conference championship. The first was NC State, who won the ACC. And then the second was Campbell, who won the SoCon. They beat App State. It was 92-87. And similar to the Big 12s, this came down to the second to last match. The second to last match just showed, and this may have been even a better story than Big 12s, just because, in Big 12s, it wasn't Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State in the finals. But in this match, at the 174-pound weight, it was App State versus Campbell in the finals. Whoever wins this match wins the tournament for the team. This is crazy. So, Campbell ended up getting 5 auto qualifiers, and I'll get to that match in just a second. Many first-time champions, actually. Many first-time champions is what Campbell had. It was awesome to watch them win. Of course, I was at these SoCon championships. Had a great time watching. Chris Cobra won his 2nd title, and Campbell had 5 auto qualifiers. And like I said, it came down to the 174-pound weight, and it came down to Austin Murphy, who was able to defeat, again, Thomas Flitz, who pancaked him in the first minute. Murphy pancaked Flitz in the first minute, and he looked pinned. I mean, that was almost it for Campbell, but ultimately just got some back points and ended up winning the match, winning his first conference championship, and winning the team conference championship for Campbell. He will enter the NCAA tournament undefeated at 174 as a conference champion. It's awesome to see how many guys are actually undefeated this year, because there are quite a bit. Now, the interesting thing is you may be wondering, like, why it was 174. Why was that the second to last weight? Well, it's the SoCon, because they have so little bids going into the NCAA championships. A lot of their matches, they have to wrestle a true second match. So they actually wrestle the true second bouts first, and then they go to the rest. It's kind of strange how they do it, but like I said, every conference championship is just a little bit different. Now, App State is the other team to mention here, just a couple points behind Campbell, but they won the first 5 weights from 125 to 157, sending those guys to the NCAA championships. The big thing here was Milner at 149 was able to upset 3-time SoCon champion Josh Heil. I expect both these guys to bounce back and maybe pull off some upset at the NCAA championships is what happened there. And the last big conference, and actually let me show I didn't even show the SoCon champions here, so these are some of the other things. The other kind of upset happened at 157 when previous SoCon champion Ben Barton unfortunately lost to another App State guy. I mean, the rivalries here between Campbell and App State is just, it's some of the best in college wrestling. You talk about Oklahoma State, you talk about Iowa and Penn State, you talk about Campbell and App State. These rivalries are great. And then the MAC. So in the MAC, let's discuss that a little bit. Missouri won their 10th straight conference championship. And this may have been the talk of the town as far as conference championships are concerned, because Mizzou just looked so darn good. They earned 10 qualifiers and their 10th straight title. And maybe some of the most qualifiers in the whole NCAA. We'll see when the actual bids come out. We'll see what other teams ended up getting 10. But Mizzou won by a score 188.5 to Central Michigan's 129 points. Now, this was the most points scored out of any team not only in this conference championships in the MAC, but actually out of every single tournament. They scored the most points. And Ryder ended up coming in third with 120.5 points. It was a great battle all the way until the end. Just because they kept scoring points and putting points on the board. And they set the MAC record. That was the impressive thing. Coach Smith earned Coach of the Year. Schmidt, Mahler, O'Toole, and Elam all won individual titles. Other guys placed in the top 3. The unfortunate part, Alan Hart, his loss kind of hurt. He was undefeated coming into this tournament, ended up losing. He was set up pretty well to make the finals, maybe win his first trophy. Unfortunately, couldn't do that. O'Toole won his first trophy, though. 13-0. The seeding at 165 is going to be interesting just because there's so many crazy little matchups and wins. And how do you seed a young guy, a freshman like O'Toole, who's undefeated, a conference champion, hasn't wrestled anybody crazy yet, though, so I don't know. I'd be watching out for him come NCAA tournament time. Central Michigan also had a great tournament. I do want to mention Central Michigan, who had 3 champs, Hildebrandt, Dresden Simon, and Matt Stencil at 25-41 and 285, respectively, each won titles. And then in other news, Jesse De La Vecchia at 57 is riding a long winning streak, back-to-back MAC champ, 22-match win streak, with his last wins over Hidley and Monday, or his last losses, are to Hidley and Monday at the Scuffle. So, I mean, if those are your last losses, I don't know. I'd be watching out for De La Vecchia for sure. Britt Wilson of Northern Illinois at 197 pinned Jeremiah Kent in the finals. He's 13-1. His only losses to Keckeisen, who just won a conference championship. So, like I said, from the beginning of this video to the end, 197 is easily one of the most crazy weights in the entire NCAA. This was your entire conference championship recap. What was your favorite match of the week? And who was your favorite wrestler? Honestly, one of my favorite wrestlers to watch was Ridge Lovett, just because of how much fun he was having and how much excitement he was having on the mat. My favorite match, I don't know, it'd probably have to be the Nick Lee and Sebastian Rivera semifinal, where Nick Lee was able to pull off that victory in a close margin. Drop your comments down below.